You can't see it right now, but my room is like a fucking travesty in terms of cleanliness. I'm not at Asmongold levels, but there's so much, like, this is a lot of camera work. So I'm both proud and disappointed in myself right now. Anyway, hi, what's up? Hope you had a great holiday weekend. Man, this year is just barreling through. So I want to give an update on a couple of stories you might have missed, as well as an update on some plans for the rest of the year. So very quickly, talking about the latter, we're going to be on break from the 14th through the 20th of December. We won't have a show on the 21st, but we might have a show on the 14th. I don't know yet if it's going to be a Freestyle the News or not. We're also trying to figure out whether we have the bandwidth to do shows on Christmas week, or maybe just take that week off and come back earlier in the new year, or maybe do streams that week, or maybe do streams it's all up in the air. But the holidays are always just a giant blow up of a YouTuber schedule because people have different watch habits. They're looking for different things. We don't know what news is breaking. I also have my own plans and all that kind of stuff because I have to have some sort of a life. But I genuinely enjoy hanging out with y'all and making content for y'all. So we're going to see where things lie, and I'll update you when I know more. But anyway, let's just jump into the breakdown. And we got a big main story that broke before all of the food comas on Thanksgiving. The National Guard shooting, Trump's escalation against Venezuela, and the effort to reshape the narrative around the culture war. So starting off, on the day before Thanksgiving, 2 members of the West Virginia National Guard who were deployed in D.C. were shot just 2 blocks away from the White House by an Afghan national. One of the National Guard members died, and the suspect involved was critically wounded. The attack was an ambush with a magnum, and there isn't a clear motive right now that's emerged, but that hasn't stopped social media from applying every motive it can onto it. And that's because the suspect, like we said before, was a national from Afghanistan who immigrated to the United States in 2021, but was also reportedly one of the CIA's Zero units who were granted asylum in the U.S. after the withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021 under a program by the Biden administration. Now, to clarify, while he was brought over in 2021, the Trump administration was the one that actually granted him the asylum in April of 2025. Now, the program in question that brought him over was called Operation Allies Welcome, and it was a program implemented by the Biden administration to protect vulnerable Afghani nationals who had helped the U.S. in the past, allowing them to stay in the United States for 2 years without permanent immigration status. And look, this specific person had extensive vetting into his background, both when he worked with the CIA and when he was admitted back in 2021. However, when interviewed after this incident had occurred, his family members said that he suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder and that in the weeks prior he had stopped coming to the mosque and was currently unemployed. And look, from what I just told you, there could be a myriad of motives or incentives rustling around in this person's head for why he did what he did. Not just foreigners want to kill Americans, which is what the right seems to be really doubling and tripling down on in the wake of this. Almost gleefully, with lightning speed, the Trump administration seized on this story. And I don't know why. It's not like they've been getting dog-walked politically the last few weeks, with Trump himself calling it a crime against humanity, vowing to stop all immigration from Afghanistan and to ramp up deportation and immigration operations and re-examine the immigration statuses of all immigrants from that region. And of all of the repeats of 2006 that I've kept talking about since this motherfucker got back into office, man, does this feel like the laziest reboot of it. And I want to echo the same frustration you've probably already heard in the press with everybody blaming different things like, actually, the shooting happened because they were deployed, or the shooting happened because of the border, or let's use the shooting as a political football for whatever the fuck we want. Everybody knows the secret. The shooting happened because we have a broken fucking world where people's circumstances drive them into a malicious place, and all of the tools that we don't give them to survive, we make up for in tools that we give them to cause pain and destroy others. That is the fucking fact. And everyone fucking knows it. They try to put it into different specific contexts, but that's the fact. And we exist in these dumb semantic arguments all the time over this one thing that we all know. And one of those dumb fucking arguments happens to be about foreigners or immigrants who don't assimilate. We are far past the point in American society just falling for the bullshit of immigrants are the cause of all of our problems. They took our jobs. Even during the 2024 election, many of the people who voted for Trump's policies did not have a malicious view of immigrants. There are interviews with people middle of the line who flipped the election, right? Who have a much more nuanced take on this than fucking Trump's stupid mouth keeps uttering, which is why his immigration rating is underwater, which is why everything else around his policies is underwater. We have another story about a special election we'll talk about in a second, but how many ways do you have to be fucking told that the culture war isn't working until you pivot into your Zoran cosplay? Afghans in the US are obviously terrified, worried that they're going to be blamed and generalized for the actions of someone they don't know and don't necessarily agree with. And let's be honest, the entire US government is at fault for how this was dealt with. The Biden administration clearly didn't do enough and pissed off a lot of people in their withdrawal from Afghanistan. We can debate about forever wars, but listen, a lot of people were fucking sacrificed with how that was handled. It was an enormous turning point in his presidency. And the Trump administration can shut the fucking hole in its face when it tries to talk about Biden's auto pen policies or whatever the fuck making this happen. It was April, shit fuck, when you signed off on a lot of this. You keep mouthing off about how much power you had. You clearly fucked this up. And maybe it wasn't even him. Maybe the circumstances of the world you have currently made us live in could have contributed to it. You ever fucking think of that? Especially because all the agencies were scrambling because your fat ass can't keep the eye on the ball with getting shit done in an efficient way that doesn't trickle down to fucking everybody else up. I'm not even talking about his like executive orders and all that bullshit. I'm just talking about basic fucking coherence and like function in his government. He's always had just dog shit like operational efficiency. And most importantly, what about all of the National Guardsmen who were let down by all of these rollouts? The National Guard being deployed has been unpopular. Its use has been ineffective and has only showed holes in Trump's power structure over time. Even the slain National Guardsmen, who, by the way, believed in some of what Trump's like reason for deployment was. She was like, I see crime around here. Couldn't really do anything because, again, it would make the situation fucking worse. She was wondering, what are we doing down here? We are told to call the cops instead. And of course, with the way that is structured, that makes all of this far more escalatory. All of this is done is endanger civilians and service members and given fodder over bloodshed for you to use for political chyrons, you cocksuckers. Here's the worst of it. This happened before Thanksgiving. So for most people, it was drowned out by the holiday season itself. It's already started to fade out of the headline cycle. But in the midst of that cycle, Trump had to double and triple down because he really wanted to fucking control the headlines going into Black Friday weekend, ginning up as much Islamophobia as he could. And then all the pundits came and all they did was fearmonger for 2 more days and scare the shit out of Afghani immigrants who now have to contend with Trump's ire. And I'm throwing shade at pundits here because they play these situations like a fucking sport, right? Causing each side to double down on rhetoric. And when one side's rhetoric is xenophobia and they clearly want to push everything through, there's a lopsided effect on who gets hit. I saw a few people, right, defend innocent U.S. Afghans during all this. But what I saw mostly was far more people tweet about actually Trump's National Guard deployment did this, which, okay, yeah, technically, sure, that has a ton to do with the blame. But some of these motherfuckers were just trying to play Twitter warrior and tit for tat as opposed to actually combating the misinformation the Trump administration was giving. So while one side is saying, man, fuck Afghani civilians and foreigners, these guys are like, actually, it's the National Guard, right? So the National Guard deployment gets scrutiny, but there's no like actual defense of like, hey, it's crazy you're being xenophobic here. That was very rarely called out in the stuff I saw. So right now, Trump is planning to halt immigration from Afghanistan and ordering reviews of Afghani immigrants, all while dealing with this Venezuela thing. Oh, by the way, we'll talk about that right after this. I want to talk a little bit about fact-checking. Look, I've said this before, but over the last few months, verifying stories has become way harder. Almost every single headline is baked in with spin designed to scare you, push a narrative, or twist the facts just enough to make the other side look bad. It has become exhausting in the sea of noise that we live in right now, and it's getting harder to figure out exactly what's real and what's exaggerated. But that is why I am a proud user of Ground News, the sponsor of today's show. I can't tell you how excited I am that Ground News is sponsoring today's show. I have wanted to work with them for a while, and for good reason. Ground News is an incredible tool for verifying news accuracy and seeing how stories are covered across the political spectrum. It aggregates coverage from over 50,000 news sources and literally shows you which side is covering what, and more importantly, who's ignoring what. Let me show you how it works. Take this story about a judge temporarily blocking the Trump administration from sending the National Guard into Chicago. Over 300 sources are covering it, either high or mostly high factuality. 33% of those sources are from the left, but just 12% are from the right, and they cover it differently. You can see left-leaning outlets like Raw Story frame the decision as a striking rebuke to the Trump administration. Meanwhile, you have right-leaning outlets like the Washington Examiner calling it a partial block or a minor setback. Same event, two completely different takeaways. You know how spin works. But look, insights like these that look into the material differences in how these stories are covered are the best way I've found to cut through the spin, check your own bias, and actually see the full picture. And in a time where polarization is being weaponized daily, that is a game changer. They even have this great feature called a blind spot feed, which shows you stories covered by one side but ignored by the other. It breaks you out of your echo chamber in real time. Look, I've been using Ground News for a while now. I genuinely love it. And if you want to try it for yourself, you can go right now to groundnews.com/Zed or scan the QR code on screen and you can get 40% off an unlimited Vantage plan today. Not only does this help support my cool rap news channel, it is also a really strong, healthy tool to keep up with the news without drowning in the noise or feeling overwhelmed. I cannot recommend it enough. So if you are tired of media narratives, if you want something solid to stay informed throughout all the noise, and you want to support the show, go right now to groundnews.com/Zed and see the whole picture today. All right. Back to the breakdown. You know how Trump and Pete Hegseth have been firing at Venezuelan boats, sinking them under the guise that they're actually traffickers and drug runners, only to find that some of them are civilian or fishing boats and that they may be committing war crimes? Well, guess fucking what? As detailed in the Washington Post, a report on one of those firings said that after a boat was hit on September 2nd, 2 people were found to be clinging to the wreckage, after which Hegseth ordered a second strike to kill them all. No survivors. I may be paraphrasing bits and pieces of that, but the order specifically to kill them all is the thing people are talking about. Now, Hegseth is denying this, which, by the way, your credibility is shit, and maybe you should have worked on that just a fucking little bit, and you might be able to weather this fucking turd fire better. But there has been fallout across political parties, with the Republican Congress ordering a probe into Hegseth's orders. And once again, to reiterate, it is fucking 2005. These dipshits are doing the same fucking things, only dumber. It is why their explanations aren't flying the way it used to. It's why they're close to losing a seat in Tennessee. Oh, by the fucking way, there's that too. Have you heard of Aftyn Behn? I'm sorry, it's Aftyn Behn, not Bain. I just looked it up and found out I was wrong. But anyway, there is currently a special election in deep red Tennessee for a U.S. House seat between Republican Matt Van Epps and progressive Aftyn Behn. Behn is a member of the Tennessee House of Representatives currently. She's been running in the special election on a very specific targeted message of affordability, and she's within striking distance of winning that seat. Do you understand how much of a crazy shift that is? It is a plus 22 Trump district. okay? Even if she fucking loses by like 1 point, that's fucking bad news. And again, she's running on an affordability agenda. She's spoken in favor of trans rights, called out the private prison system, right? She's not like a hyper leftist kind of person, but she is fairly progressive in deep red Tennessee with a history of fighting for those things. And now, because of how close this race is, it's attracted national attention from figures like Kamala Harris. And on the other side, even Trump and Johnson are trying to host a tele-rally to rack up the score for Van Epps. Millions of dollars poured into this race, a lot of them uncovering previous statements Aftyn had made on her podcast, like she hates Nashville or that she dislikes country music. And look, Aftyn eventually clarified her position on Nashville, by the way, and a lot of people have been saying, well, actually, she was right about country music, which I'm just going to let you know as a rapper, right? I'm going to say this. Stop bitching about country music for fucking ever, please. Listen, there are two genres in all of music that implore you in their tradition to write your own shit. Rap music and country. And what are the two genres most people fucking mouth off when they're like, oh, I listen to everything except for country and rap? Don't get me wrong. If you have listened, like actually listened to some country music, and it's just like not your cup of tea, you're not with it, right? Absolutely fair. We all have our preferences. I'm totally with you there. But if the only fucking country songs you have heard are stadium country, right? And you just want to shit on the entire genre without like listening to like a large majority or the enormity and the diversity of that genre and what it could be, and you're just saying it because you vaguely think it's about fucking your cousin, you're being ignorant. Almost as ignorant as stadium country is. Here's an example. Go listen to Jesse Wells' Join Ice. Yeah, it's more of a folk song, but that's like saying boom bap isn't the same as rap music now, right? It's as adjacent as you can get. Fuck, Beyonce made an amazing country album, and it is a country album. But look, just don't throw away the genre without giving it a chance. I'm just seeing a lot of people talk shit. Don't talk shit, all right? If you need some suggestions, I will give you suggestions. But look, all this to say, there is more and more evidence that Republicans have miscalculated where the culture was going, and it is backfiring on them on the back half of this year. I mentioned this in the comeback mechanic episode, but it's very clear that the goal of the Trump administration was to flood the zone and hope the momentum of Trump's pressure overwhelmed any setbacks that they might have received afterwards. It worked for like a little bit, right, at the tail end of summer, but after a crazy election night where Democrats overperformed, let's be very clear, they were poised to do pretty well, not that well. And with companies and properties slowly pivoting away from trying to appease the Trump culture war aesthetic, we are at the point where there is a lane to actually have meaningful pushback to the administration's priorities and soft power and propaganda, right? It comes in the form of promoting the ideas and the culture and the community, right? That all of the stuff we've been fighting for brings across the line. Affordability has now become the buzzword everybody uses. And by the way, CNN, don't think I didn't fucking see you trying to claim the affordability agenda came from Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill. They said like, oh, what is it? Aftyn Behn is running similarly to these two candidates who ran on the affordability agenda. Motherfucker, nationally, there's one story that dominated the news coverage for 5 days last week. Who are you fooling with this? We know where that buzzword came from, but the point still stands. The conversation is shifting, and it's becoming clear that the politics of those running have to as well. The priorities of Democrats, where Republicans have to fall back on, because moving forward, it's not about the people you try to blame. It's about the moments you can't hide. Let me know what you think in the comments. And that's our show. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll be back next week with more and a couple more yap sessions too. But anyway, my name is Tabani. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all soon. Let's go.